Welcome and hello. So here it is, part one of the massive fireplace build. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to need is a cereal box. Now I'm not going to go through like everything you'll need. You know, obviously you need a ruler and some kind of a knife, box cutter or something. Be careful, sharp objects. If you're kids, make sure you have adult supervision when crafting. So here we are. So anyway, the first thing you're going to need is a box, either a cereal box or a snack box, a cracker box, something. And it can be any size you want because this is your fireplace. But for me, I want to build something pretty massive that's going to go in like a ski lodge, great room type of thing. So I'm going to use this. Now this is about 13 7/8 inches. So I'm going to add a base to it that's going to pop it up another 3 inches. So it's the 16 inches, which is what my normal wall heights are. So let's go ahead and cut this flap off. So I'm just taking my knife and I am just really carefully running along this top edge here. You decide how big you want your opening to be. There are standard sizes for fireplaces. For me, I'm just gonna eyeball it and decide what I think looks good. Make it 6 inches wide, 5 inches tall. So it's gonna be a little wider than it is tall. Do my usual fly by the seat of my pants thing. Okay, so there you can see our large fireplace opening. And we're just gonna cut like that. And you do want it to be as accurate as possible, but the truth is we're gonna be covering this with our fieldstones. So if we do mess it up a little bit, we do have a little wiggle room and it will be a little bit forgiving because it's going to look rough and rustic by the time we're done anyway. So save this for more fieldstones, and so voila, you are looking at the beginning of a fireplace. Piece right here. There we go. So I got that flap off and I kept the little side ones in. And you can see it's kind of wonky, so it does want to wiggle around a little. And I'm just keeping these flaps in because it does help it a little bit, keep it sturdy. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down right now. And for something like this, I really do prefer to use wood glue. Unfortunately, the nozzles on my wood glue always seem to get all messed up. Now you can get all kinds of fancy clamps and things to work with. I use binder clips. You can get them at any, order them online or get them at Office Depot. And I find that they work great for little projects like this. So we're just going to do that. That's just going to hold it until it dries. We have to sand this down, and I've mentioned this before, is this contains actually a plastic coating. And so if you want stuff to really stick to it and last a long time, you need to sand all of this down. All right, I have a piece of 220 grit here, but in all reality, something like 100 or 120 would probably actually work even better. And I'm just gonna really, forgive the scraping sound, but I'm just gonna really quick, and you can see where it's starting to look a little scuffed up. That's all you want. You don't have to be perfect. And this is just removing that plastic coating so that when you go to glue your stones on, they'll actually stick. So I'm going to go sand this down and I'll be right back. So you do want to take a towel or a rag or something, and you want to make sure you get all the dust off. And I also ran the sandpaper along these side corners here because we are going to be gluing stuff on that too. All right, so our box is prepped and ready to go. The next thing that we need to do is we really need to stabilize it. So what we need to do is we need to glue something up inside here to kind of keep the box square and ready to go. So what we need to do is find out what that dimension is. About 9 1/4. So we'll try 3 3/8 by 9 1/4. And to stabilize it, you can use shipping box cardboard, or you can use spare scraps of foam core, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing if I can remember where I put my spare scraps of foam core. 3 3/8 by 9 1/4. So let's go ahead and get piece that size cut out to stabilize the inside of our box. Okay, so we have our piece cut out, and we are going to use Fabri-Tac because it's foam, and Fabri-Tac works well with the foam core. And now the fun part of trying to work it up in there, and you want to get it up in there. Hold that down and let that dry up in there. And I'm just going to weigh it down and let it set up. Okay, so as you can see, we have glued a foam core support. Let me get this out of the way. Up inside to help prevent this from collapsing and shifting and going all off. Getting out of square, basically. So what I have here is I'm going to do that whole paper support trick where I'm just going to glue pieces of paper just to help hold it in place. Like that. Okay, I don't know how well you can see it up in there, but so we've got the supports in, and that's just to see already. Look how much sturdier it is. It's not squishing and racking like it was. So there you have that, and that's an important piece. So now we got to worry about the firebox. They tend to narrow as they go in. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how are we going to build a firebox to go in here? And we want to build it separately so that we can cover it with either paper or however you want to make it look like there's fire brick inside of it. As I take a box and I open up the bottom and the top so that it's open like this, and you see this part right here on the side, it is automatically kind of made so that you can angle it the way the walls of a firebox need to be made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out of this box. So I'm going to find the middle. This is going to be the back. Okay, so that's our center mark. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up right here. And as you can see, it's coming pretty close to how wide we said we wanted this thing to be anyway. So we're just going to line it up. And then I'm going to angle this. And I said I wanted it to hit on the inside right about there. Right about. So we're going to angle this so we get it to where we think it's going to hit. And then we're just going to make a mark. And then we're going to do it on this side as well. The way we want it to do is we want these flaps so that we can actually use these to glue it in place. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to measure out what you think it's going to be, and then you want to score it lightly. Not all the way through. You just want to give it a light score, and that way you can bend it backwards. And this is going to help us glue this in place. So we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to measure out approximately 3 7/8. We're gonna use our fancy ruler here, line it all up as best we can. I'm just gonna lightly score that top. And then you're just gonna snap it. So you end up with a shape like this, okay? It's kind of a weird U with these little tabs coming off of it. This will glue right here and hold our firebox right where we need it to be. Now, if for some reason you accidentally cut your tab off, do not fear. Everything is fixable. I accidentally pushed too hard on one side and I cut this little part off. So all I've done is I've taken a, you know it, piece of paper, fold it in half, and I'm going to glue it right along that edge, just like that, and I'm going to create a tab that I can use to help glue this in place and hold it. We just go in like this. Okay. We're just going to slip this in. Something like that. Okay, good. So now we need to cut this down to the length it's going to be. I measure down 7.5. These are my measurements, remember. Yours might be different. And we're going to get a nice, straight bottom edge to our firebox. So now what we're going to do is we are going to cover this with paper. Okay, So I went and got some printables, and these are going to be our fire brick in the fireplace. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paper the back first and have it come over a little bit, and then I'm going to put the sides in. Okay, so here we go. I have glued the brick paper onto our fireplace box, our firebox, and the next step would theoretically be to slip this in. Okay, now it's not even glued in place yet, but you can see how that actually really gives us a good impression of a fireplace. So what you want to do is you're going to put glue on the back of the firebox so that when you press it in place it'll hold. And then those two tabs that we talked about, you put glue on those, and then you come in and you press them in place. And there you have the very beginnings of your fireplace. The next thing we need to do is build that 3-inch base I was talking about, because the 3-inch base also needs to be covered with the brick, like so that firebox looks complete. So we'll be doing something like that. And we want a piece of cardboard that is going to stretch from the very back, and it's going to come out maybe 2.5 to 3 inches beyond. All right, so what I've done is I've cut out 2 pieces of cardboard that are pretty much, or should be, just about the exact same size. I have made it so that that will be our base, and it does protrude out enough for the dolls to sit on. So you could be exact and say, I want it exactly 3 inches tall and account for the thickness of the cardboard or whatever, but we're not going to be that worried about it. All right, so what we're going to do is we need to make the front and sides of our base. So what I'm doing is I am going to cut some Amazon shipping boxes down. I'm just cutting the sides and the flaps off the long edge of a long skinny box. And here's our base. And tell you what, I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to be very careful. And I'm going to be careful, and I'm just going to cut using the base as my guide so that I can get the front the exact size that I need it to be. There we go. This should be just about the width we need, and yep, it's pretty much perfect for the width. Now, we're going to do the same trick. In order to glue it on here and make sure it stays, we're going to find the middle of our little piece here. So I'm going to draw that center line, and just to help guide me. And I know I want it to be 3 inches. So I know my ruler is 3 inches wide, so I just find that center black line of the ruler and I line it up with the line I just drew. So once again, I'm just gonna, I didn't even have to use the pencil. I'm just gonna score really lightly. Oops. And try not to let your ruler move when you do this. There we go. And I'm just gonna bend it like so. And this, so this is going to make it a little thicker than 3, but you know what? We're not straining ourselves. And then when we glue it, we will glue it like that. And I really do find that the wood glue for gluing any kind of cardboard like this is just provides such a strong permanent bond. It's amazing. So then I'm just gonna make sure that I'm on the screen and then I'm gonna just push this down, and I'm actually going to try and line up the surface of this front piece with the front edge of my top piece here as best I can. Now let's get our little clamps out, and that side is held. So we're going to let that set up for a few minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and cut out and glued up one of the side pieces to create our base. So you can see that the box is coming just about to her knee height, which means if she were to want to sit and enjoy the fire, it would be just the perfect height for her. And that's what we're going for with what's called a raised or quote-unquote sitting hearth. So let me show you real quick how I made these sides. Let me get that extra piece off there. That I cut a couple pieces that are the exact length of what we need. And so what I did was, I know this is 3, so I found a straight edge so we can make it as square as possible. And that's the key here, is you need it to be as square as possible so that when you put the support in, it's not twisting or racking your base, and your base remains relatively square and stable. And then once I did that, I'm just going to lightly score. There we are. And just snap like that. And that should give us, oops, and that should give us a nice square side. And it has gluing tabs. Now, the trick here is, you see these tabs here that we use to glue the front on? We need to make sure we don't bump into those with these tabs like that, because it's just going to throw everything off. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm just going to say, you know, maybe an inch or so in, I'm going to cut, and I'm going to cut. There we go. And I'm just going to cut a notch out, and then I'm going to do it on the other side as well. There we go. So now I have something that looks like this. So then when I go to glue it in, it's just going to slip, and then you see there's no conflict with those existing tabs. And then it goes like that. So I'm going to put glue here, I'm going to put glue here, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue right along this front edge here. And that's all, and maybe a little glue right there. And that's just going to help bind everything together. So I have my glue and my glue brush. You're just going to put your hands in there and kind of press it in, and there you go. It's this side's nice and glued, and there you have the base of your fireplace. This is the back, and this is the front. Okay, so we've got that set up and drying. So this is mainly a structure video, but I'm going to go ahead and show you a sneak peek of what we're going to be tackling in the next video. And for that, I'm going to get out the prototype, and that is the next video. We are going to tackle the stones. Now this is probably what's going to take you the longest, and there is a method to the madness here. So the first thing that I would do is I'm going to cut out the stones that go around this opening here. And if you look, I've gone so far as to make sure that they wrap under and create a realistic edge, so that if you're photographing from the side and you catch this in a side angle, it's still got that stone look and feel. You're not just seeing a very thin edge. To do that, I like to provide a little support on the inside here. I'm going to take some cereal box cardboard, because it doesn't have to be heavy duty. So I'm going to take a scrap of cereal box cardboard, and I'm just going to cut one of those like paper supports. I'm going to cut a length of it and fold it in half, and then we're going to put it up around these edges. So while we're waiting for our base to dry, why don't we go ahead and do that. And we're just going to roughly cut out a strip. We're only going to need about 1/4 of an inch in, because you don't want it to go too far in, because then it looks too bulky. It looks like it's too much. Okay, good. That's perfect. Just like that. And then what I want to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to get it so that there is a 1/4 inch, and using the edge of my ruler, I'm going to get that bend that I need. Okay, so there we have it. And this is the edge that our stones are going to glue onto. So we are going to have to glue it in just like that. so that when you look up in, you're going to see this little edge here. And that's what's going to help our stones glue down and get that thickness that we need. And get our glue brush. And incidentally, when I'm not gluing, my glue brush is sitting in a little cup of water so that it doesn't dry out and get clumpy. And put that in the water. And then we're going to take and we're going to try and make sure we get it centered. There we go. If it comes down a little bit, that's okay. No big deal. You could use the binder clips, I think. Let's give it a shot. And making sure we don't shift or move it too much. We just put them like, yep, they're going to work beautifully. So now we can let that set up. We can come back over here. We can take these two clips off. And we have our base. Now we can take our fireplace and we can sit it on our base. And our fireplace isn't perfectly square, so we're going to have to fudge a little bit. Figure out exactly where we need it to go. We'll figure it out. So it's like this, and like that. All right. So what I've done is I've just drawn a quick outline of where our firebox is, so that when I go to glue these down, I can make sure I'm actually going to get the coverage I'm looking for. There we go. I usually recommend using a glue stick with paper because it does provide a good bond and it doesn't wrinkle or warp the paper. However, the wood glue will provide a much more permanent type bond. So it's really up to you. This pattern is pretty forgiving. So what I want to do is make sure that my brush is as dry as possible. I'll wipe it off on a paper towel over here. And then I'm going to take and just put a thin layer. You don't want to use too much glue because that's usually what causes the wrinkles. Like that. And did I get it far enough back? No, I did not. Let's just go ahead and get it all the way back there. And there we go. Then we're going to take more glue. And we're going to go back to the back side here. And I think this is what's called a running bond, where the middle of one brick lines up with the seam of the other two bricks. So making sure that you're still covering, you're just going to lay this down in the glue, like so, and voila, your floor of your firebox is taken care of. I'm going to let this dry. Never try to cut wet paper. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. This should be ready to go by now. So we're just going to set these aside. And then I'm going to do the same process on the sides so that we have that lip we need in order to make sure our stones provide that illusion of thickness. Okay, so everything is dry. We have the rims all around the opening. Next thing that we need to do is we need to glue down the top to the bottom. We need to glue the base on. Take a piece of cardboard, bend it some because I got tons of scraps, and just kind of put it in there like that. And that would help provide a good glue surface. And then I could do like one here and then the same on the other side. So why don't I do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so what I've done is I've just glued 4 tabs so that when we go to position this thing and glue it down, we have something along the back there that's going to help it grab. So let's get some glue on those tabs. Continue, because the more we add to this, the stronger and sturdier it's going to get. And so we go back here like this. And we make sure we've got it the way we want it. And kind of push it together. And you're just going to kind of have to hold it. And we've got a lot more to come. So let's just set this to dry and then we'll be back. Okay, one other thing that I did to the structure is I just created this kind of a C shape piece here, And it's exactly 3 inches, just like these side pieces are. And it's providing that extra bit of stability right in the middle of our fireplace. So that is pretty much our basic structure done. The one thing that I am going to do is I'm just going to take some printer paper here, and I'm just going to cut strips of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it like that. And that's just going to be that extra bit that's going to help hold everything together over time. I'm also going to do it in the back. I'm going to glue it here, and then I'm going to pull it. I'm going to glue it, let it dry, and then I'm going to pull it super tight, and I'm going to glue it up under there. And that's going to help pull all of this together. And if you look, there's a gap where you can see, I'm sorry, I'm going to get it. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a gap right here where you can see the light coming through. And if you just push it like that, it disappears. So that is what I'm going to work on next. And that pretty much finishes our structure. So in the next video, we are going to start the part I know you're all waiting for, is we're going to fieldstone this thing. And in that video, I will show you how I make the fieldstones and how I try to get them realistic. And then we will even talk about grouting, and then we'll talk about painting. So we're going to get all of that done in the next video. This one's gone on long enough, so I will see you in the next one. Bye.